Alrighty, hello every folks and good morning. Welcome to another edition of Know Your Tic Tacs. Today we talk about the Geomancer. Yes, once again we are skipping the time age because we'll get to that in due time. Anyway, so yeah, the Geomancer. This is going to be the nature expert. They kind of just wanted to go for a representation of all kinds of beliefs from all around the world with a lot of these different classes, and so we have sort of the like naturalist, Native American type spiritualism going on with these guys, and yeah, they decided to give them the ability to control the Earth, and that's kind of neat and stuff. Actually, I think aesthetically, the Lady Geomancer is probably up there with like very possibly my favorite looking unit in the entire game. Anyway, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into these guys here. These guys, their whole shtick is that they have immediate deployment of a wide variety of debuffs, but they are entirely limited depending on the ground that they are standing on. Their weapon options are purely straightforward offense with kind of a little in between there, and then as far as their reaction abilities, they continue doing more nature stuff. So let's go ahead and get into that here. These abilities, it's worth noting, are going to scale off of both physical and magical power, meaning that any way that you can potentially stack both, you're going to get some pretty solid bonuses. This actually ended up getting a kind of an interesting buff and debuff at the same time. So like if we go ahead and look at this right here, we have more options than ever to actually boost both physical and magical at the same time. But it does come with a downside that a lot of their sort of direct weapon attacking options don't necessarily hold up as well as they once did over on Tactician. However, the ability to give them a lot more MA than before is pretty good. Oh, actually, one more thing I should probably mention for a lot of these episodes here. You'll probably realize that I don't really have a lot of the hyper endgame, like Midlight's Deep type stuff most of the time. And a lot of times when I go and do a lot of these kinds of guides, I base them off of the stuff that you'll likely run into in a regular playthrough. So like back in Tactics Ogre Reborn or something like that, yeah, people can actually get into the end game. When I did the guides for the previous version of that game, nobody touched the post-game content. So this time around, again, Midlight's Deep is very, very optional, and even with the new improvements to everything, it's probably going to be in that guide dang it box all the same, because you won't know what tiles to look for, what skills to equip when going in there. Like, there's a lot of MMO raid type shenanigans when it comes to going into that place. But yeah, no, when it comes to the stuff that you'll run into, something like Materia Plus, yeah, you can probably find that. Like, realistically, if somebody is going and checking item tiles, they probably would check the top of the one volcano in the entire region. You know, it's right there, it's one tile, it's something to consider. Anywho, okay, back off of our various tangents, let's go ahead and start talking about this. So, with these different abilities, many of them are going to be a lot more rare than others. You know, shoutouts to Magma Surge over here, which has a chance of insta-kill and can be boosted with a Fire Rod. Interesting. I'm actually not sure how. Well, I guess if you had this on like a wizard and you had a Fire Rod, so it's got options there. But yeah, there's like one map with lava tiles, so you're probably never going to see this. But when it comes to all of these other abilities, especially stuff like contortion over here, there's a solid chance that you're actually going to be able to inflict these at a distance. And in fact, one of my favorite, most satisfying memories from one playthrough of a technically modded PS1 version was running up to Reavain's 2 and accidentally petrifying 3 demons at once using Geomancy. Now that I think about it, did they actually move that over one tile, or did that mod move them closer together? I genuinely don't remember. Anyway, the way that these abilities work is that whatever ground you're standing on is going to determine the spell that goes out. It's going to be a fairly low power spell, but it's going to have something in the ballpark of a 15% chance to inflict that debuff. I remember before it was 15%, maybe they changed it, maybe they didn't, I'd assume it's probably still 15%. Anyway, so we've got Sinkhole coming in with Immobilize. This is going to be on soil or wasteland, which is fairly common. You've got stuff like Torrent, which is going to come from lakes and rivers. This is probably the second most insane one on their list, giving a chance to inflict Toad. So if, for example, you don't have a Dancer, or you don't want, or like, let's say your Black Wizard is spent or something like that, this is a good way to continuously spam something like Toad in order to have something completely disabled. It's about the same odds to hit as something like a Dancer would have to roll it out of their debuff pile, but it's going to be a bit more targeted. So it's pretty reliable, I'd say. Like, you can pretty reliably find water, you can pretty reliably spam this at a distance. Their Geomancies do have a pretty solid range here of 5, and they do splash out in an AoE. Their vertical forgiveness, even though it says unlimited, as it says on the height of effect here, it has to be under 1 tile, so it has like a little slight bit going to the sides, but not really a ton there. So either way, mostly it's going to be in a flat area, but this does have some very good range and effectiveness to it. You've got Tanglevine, also relatively common. This is just going to be grass and other vines and things. That'll give you a chance of inflicting stop. Now this one, Contortion, so gravel, flagstone, stone walls, basically like any stone that you find. This is fairly common, especially like if you're going into the melee duel fight. If you wanted to cheese that fight to make it easy, have Contortion on a Geomancer, or frankly just anybody. Go forward, just to give them some movement items, and you can immediately get rid of a couple of their units right off the bat. There's many fights like this, where there will be tiles, stone tiles within range of multiple different units, and especially if they're clumped up, you can just get rid of them all at once. Like, when this lands, this is insanely good, given that this stuff is free, but yeah, it's not always going to be available, so they are, again, limited by their local area there. Then we've got Tremor, which is going to come from certain types of stone outcroppings that has a chance to inflict confusion. Truth be told, I can't remember what this one looks like on sight. It's just sort of one that you think you're going to go get Contortion, but now you've got Tremor. Then you've got Wind Slash, which is going to come from bridges, bricks, trees, and books, which has a chance to inflict Disable. Also, I don't know why the sound is suddenly going wacky in the background. Awesome. You've got Will-O-Wisp to inflict Sleep. That's going to come from wooden floors, carpets, coffers, stairs, or wooden decks. Apparently, it just makes it very cozy. You've got Quicksand, which is going to inflict Doom, coming from marsh, swamp, or poisonous fens. It's exactly okay. Realistically speaking, this is, again, one of those ones you're kind of hoping to step into clean water to get yourself towed, and instead you're stuck with Doom. Boo. Boo this debuff. Moving on, we got Sandstorm, which will inflict blindness from sand, stalactites, or salt flats. Which is neat, but it's also blindness, so meh. Like, thematically, that's really cool. You know, it's a sandstorm kicking up. They're using the nature to their advantage. They're using their pocket sand, but yeah, it's blindness. Moving on. Snowstorm has a chance to inflict silence because it makes them have a cough or something. It comes from snow, shockingly enough. I know, who'd have thunk it. Wind Blast. That's going to come from a roof or chimney. That has a chance to inflict slow. How disappointing. Magma Surge, as we talked before, and chance of insta-kill. Also a chance that you will never once use this in your entire playthrough. Alright, from there, though, we have Nature's Wrath, a reaction ability that I have failed to mention multiple times, despite it being insanely good. In fact, in many ways, in many cases, you're perfectly fine just ignoring everything else on the Geomancer and just picking up Nature's Wrath. Essentially, what this does is that it gives you access to every single Geomancy ability, even if you haven't learned them, and lets you counter everything. One of the nice things about this is that you usually will be within 5 tiles of anything to react to it. It doesn't, I don't believe it splashes in an AoE. Let's see if it does mention that. No, I don't believe it splashes in an AoE, but it does hit one tile in reaction. This can be a ranged attack, magic attack, physical attack, what have you. It counters everything, but this essentially means that when they're attacked, they have a very good chance to counterattack by just petrifying something. So yeah, it is going to be fairly random what it does, given that you don't always know where you're going to be when you react to it, but given how many disabling debuffs are available on here, this is arguably the best skill the Geomancer has, and again, given everything else about them, you are perfectly fine skipping everything else and just taking this if you really want a lot of debuffs, like for great value or whatever else. Personally, I really like the fact that they use battle axes, but that's kind of whatever. That's just a me thing. Anywho, moving on, then we also have attack boost. This is just a straightforward, physical attack boost, and makes them hit stuff harder. So that's cool. You can combine it with a lot of other stuff. A lot of folks like shoving this on Ninja and watching them absolutely tear ass, but anyway, moving on. We then have the rather confusing Ignore Terrain. So this is kind of like what we saw in the Mystic, but it does it for different terrain types. So these guys go through water, but unlike the Samurai, it's not swimming. Like, it's so weirdly specific, but sure, whatever. They can move easier when going through rivers and stuff. I guess they just sort of part the water or something. But again, it's not swimming, so like they can't swim in deep water, but they can move through it without issues. So that's sure, why not? And then, granted, if the other one wasn't oddly specific, is oddly specific enough, we have lava walking, which is yeah, the one use case for this is like there's item pickup tiles in lava, so you can go do that. Which I personally have never done, but people tell me you can get some very mediocre items that really are only there for the purpose of completion. So yeah, shove this somewhere down in the bottom of your rankings. Anyway, from there, let's go ahead and go over to their equipment, which is pretty darn nifty. They get swords, they get axes, and yeah, I mean, it's a nice collection of cool weapons, I would say. But the cool thing about this is that it actually gives them a lot of access to interesting type of builds here. So specifically, sure, we can go for the sort of, I guess you could argue, meta of physical and, like physical and magical or whatever else, but you can also do nifty stuff like this, where you can go ahead and take something like an ancient sword and a sleep sword, and this is a build that I wanted to work in previous versions, okay? So, the Ancient Sword Sleep Blade combo. This is something that you use in Tactics Ogre 1 Vision. Not these exact weapons, but using a combination of something like a dagger and a katetsu in that mod of that game is effectively a combo that allows you to double attack with multiple debuffs at once. Technically, this does exist in Tactics Ogre Reborn as well, but I love dual wield kind of like multiple status effect type of attacks. However, back in PSP and WOTL, if you tried to use this, the thing would just fucking die. So it was completely pointless, alright? Like, dual-wield builds just one-shot stuff all the time before Tactician difficulty. This time around, this actually has a purpose, so you have a chance to inflict Immobilize plus Sleep, making them very, very capable of not going anywhere. So that's just kind of neat. There's not too many weapons with debuff effects on there, but anybody that can potentially use swords by default can combine in dual-wield and make use of something like this, and it's very thematically fitting. It's not their meta or anything, but it is very thematically fitting for this guy, so, you know, it's neat. And you can basically just decide to go this way and then maybe just, like, replace their equipment with something that boosts MA instead. That way they end up getting a bit more magical type stuff going, and then if they're going down this whole direction, what you can also do, which this feels like a terrible value right here, but whatever, we'll just mix it up a little bit. What you can also do is then, let's say combine in something like Bard songs to make up for the fact that their build isn't very good and kind of limited in terms of range a lot of the time, to just go boost both of their physical and magical attacks as well. It actually combines in decently well with Bard songs, because not only do they now have the ability to go support everybody, they now have the ability to kind of boost both of their sort of sides of their damage equation at the same time. Potentially you could replace Nature's Wrath with something like MP Shield at this point, give them something like Mana Font, and now, they can just kind of play it a bit more risky. They can be the whole support thing. They can eventually win just about anything. They can reset themselves in a bunch of interesting, fun ways and what have you. So, yeah. It's got some play. It's got some ideas. There's fun stuff here. That shirt is very weird. That looks very uncomfortable. It seems like just the optimal chafing experience, to be honest. Yeah, it's weird how you got, like, really solid aesthetics on the lady Geomancer, and then on the dude Geomancer, they're just like, what if March of the Black Queen protagonist, but like we went male model with it, and we just decided to just give them the most uncomfortable looking shirt in human history. Just a bit of a thought. Yeah, that looks like it would hurt, is the thing. So, yeah, anyway, that's the Geomancer. They're pretty darn cool. They're a very fun class. They're thematically very fun, aesthetically kind of neat looking, and yeah, their abilities are very very interestingly useful. All right. Anyways, that's about all that I had time for here today. So y'all have yourselves a good one. Take care. Thank you for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one. Will we finally do the Time Mage? I don't know. Maybe. Again, all things in time. You have yourselves a good one. Take care.